Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two.
Norbert's is having a sale on their rockers, 10% off rockers. They have rainbow rockers and the regular two-tone rockers, and they have one that looks like a turtle. Norbert's will also be at the trade shows, so check out their pre-order list for deals at your regional congress like Six, One, and GAT. Go to norberts.com for 10% discount on anything with the code GymCastic. Norberts is also giving away a $50 Norberts gift card that can be used on anything in their online store, no minimum. Just follow Norberts Athletic on Instagram and comment on the giveaway post. Good luck. Last week, we talked all about the judging scandals that led to an overhaul of the judging system at the F.I.G. This week, the man who led the team to research and change the judging evaluation system is here to explain how it was done and how it works. And this includes how they chose the judges for this Olympic Games in Paris. Plus, all the Gymternet news, the Gym Nerd's Guide to our favorite outrageous rule inequalities. And it's July 15th, and we are 10 days away from our first live podcast from Paris. I will be in France at the Olympic Games. It will be after women's podium training, unless something really exciting happens in men's podium training or there's something to discuss.
When has something exciting happened in men's podium training? They're like, we will rest until there is a score.
Yeah, but just in case.
You never know.
But you never know.
Now it's going to be like the most interesting day there's ever been.
I will be there the whole time watching. Welcome to the number one gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica. I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation. Let's begin with the headlines.
Okay.
Most importantly, this week is the week Simone's documentary series, Simone Biles Rising, premieres Wednesday, July 17th on Netflix, the first of a 4-part, we think, series. We are doing a live behind the scenes after we watch episode 1, so you can join us at 6 p.m. Pacific time, not Eastern, on Wednesday to discuss. So you can watch it and discuss as a family. Also, the ARD documentary series, 60 Seconds of Perfection, will be out this week as well. So if you are in Germany or you want to watch with a VPN, you can do so on ARD. If all of this grown-ass women doing gymnastics stuff or watching men's gymnastics is giving you the flip itch, do you ever get that, Spencer?
It sounds like you need a cream for it. Or have you seen your primary care physician about this? Because I can't help you with that problem.
You know, when you're just like watching in your living room and then you start trying things and you start doing handstands and then you're like, okay, I want to flip, but you're like, I need a tumble track or trampoline because I haven't done this in a long time. You can go to adult-gymnastics.com and find a gymnastics class near you for adults. And you can also find gymnastics camps and a wonderful community. That's the major news this week.
Yeah.
I mean, other things happen in the world. And my things to say about that are, when you fight a monster, remember not to become the monster. This is the most important thing. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, Olympic news. All the Olympians are accounted for. 192 artistic gymnasts accounted for. The rosters are done. We have everyone. Now it's time to revisit our favorite game, Spencer. Who has more attire rules, men or women?
Oh, Jessica's favorite topic. It's been a while. Good. Get back into it.
It's been a while. This is my favorite because I'm always like, all right, well, let's just see. We cover this every time and let's just see. Okay, so there are 13 rules for women, 9 for men.
Which seems close, but like, you know, as we've talked about, the men's rules are like, did you pack a toothbrush? And the women's rules are like, if you dress like a slut in France, you'll never find a husband.
Yes.
That's my summary of the difference between the two rules. But yes, go ahead.
So there are 223 words about attire for the men, mostly about socks and pants versus shorts. And then there are 382 words for women. So what did they do with all those extra words? Why did they need them? Let me explain to you, Spencer. Yeah. The extra words that they added that are not in the men's code, but are in the women's code under attire are elegant, proper, modest, line, neckline, sternum, non-transparent, makeup, shoulder blades, straps, animal, human, coverings, painting, color, jewelry, bracelets, padding, theatrical character, necklace, stud, earrings, face, ankle, leg, hip bone, and finally, buttocks.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I know there's different body types, so, and different uniforms. So, there's no reason to have different uniforms. Everybody could just wear, a leotard or a singlet. That would be fine. But
we know there are no neckline rules for men's because we've watched the Italian men's team compete before. So there are no neckline rules.
None. The problem with a lot of these, as we've discussed in the past, is that a lot of the words that they've used here, like modest, proper, elegant, theatrical, are up for interpretation. And if we learn anything from gymnastics, and especially from Dr. Hughes Mercier, who revamped how they evaluate judges, that there should not be any up to deductions in gymnastics. Everything should be objective and a very specific deduction. So
you're saying the word modest is not objective?
Everybody doesn't have the exact same definition for modest across all cultures. I mean, obviously, everyone should. The best words, though, that are in the women's code and not in the men's, which they should definitely add this to men's, they have the phrase backspins in the women's code.
Because you need rules about your competition number if you are doing a backspin and you don't want those safety pins and that number all flopping around and being pokey when you're doing a backspin.
Exactly. So you can just take it. So if you see anyone take off their number, hold it up before they salute.
That means watch this routine because there's going to be a backspin.
It's going to be great.
It's Jessica's, basically the equivalent of Jessica's Dream, which is like a light show before the best routine so that everyone knows when the most exciting one is about to happen.
Yes.
That's basically that, which is holding up the competition bib number so you know there's going to be a backspin.
That's so good. All right. So with that in mind, Spencer, we now come to our Yell at Your TV, an elite gym nerd's guide to outrage. This is how to be the most obnoxious person, but informed at your watch party, your local bar, wherever you're getting them to. I always tell the story about the time we had to watch
them to showing gymnastics. Yeah.
Yes. When we had a watch party at a local sports bar during Women's All Around, there was like a regular men's sports ball radio show in there. And they were getting so annoyed that we were yelling at the TV the whole time. And I was like, it's sports. Do you not understand what happens in sports? You yell at the TV. Everybody knows that. Okay. So Spencer, what are the deductions for undisciplined behavior? Do you know about the undisciplined behavior? Are you familiar
love
with
the undisciplined behavior category. Like walking under the low bar. So undisciplined.
These are the little rules that can cost you a medal.
And I would just like to say that I'm so proud of you right now. Because as my philosophy of life is that, the most fun part of any competition is comprehensively reviewing the rules beforehand. And I'm so glad that this is been transferred onto you. It makes me very happy.
It's fun when you're preparing to go to an Olympic Games, so you need to know all the obscure rules just in case, because one of these things always happens at an elite competition. We just saw one of these things happen at Olympic trials. And so you're studying, but then also your whole job is a podcast where you tell people about the obscure things they can yell at their TV about. So, okay. So undisciplined behaviors. One of the ones that's changed.
Okay.
You used to be able to, if you fell, you could stay down as long as you needed to assess yourself. Am I hurt? Does my brain work? Okay. And then you could get up. Now, because people were definitely abusing it and like sitting up, and then their coach would be like, don't get up. Stay there as long as you need. Adjust your grips, fix your hair, pull your leotard up. Okay, now
the
get up.
reasoning being that the clock for the fall timing wouldn't start until you were on your feet again. So you could stay down to basically delay the clock. So you had extra time to rest and breathe and, have the energy to start your routine over again, basically.
So now it's like you can still, you want to make sure you're not hurt. But if it's clear you're delaying the competition, that is considered undisciplined or abusive behavior. Do you remember what the specific deduction for that is?
all of the undisciplined behaviors are 3/10
All of them.
deductions. Yeah, that whole category is. My question for you, what Olympians from 2024 are you would be most likely to get this deduction? Like, who are you most who's most likely to fall prey to this?
Bart Dulo.
He's not even competing.
I don't care.
All
He's
this.
my
I've
favorite.
done. I have to do all this research into all these rules. I've done so much. I don't know
You
who's
didn't say
competing.
it had to be from this Olympic Games.
That's the point. We're talking about the Olympics are about to happen. Who at the Olympics is most likely to get this deduction?
Most likely to get this deduction is neck tattoo.
Nicola Bartolini of Italy.
Bartolini, yes.
Okay. Also known as neck tattoo.
Yes.
I would say, I think Italy is a solid choice. It has to be a gymnast from a country with a strong soccer tradition of ingrained not inbred, don't that inbreeding something different, innate, like genetically inherited soccer culture of being down on the ground and really milking it and rolling around until someone pays attention to you and staying on the ground a long time. So I think, I agree with Italy generally, and in general, Italy, the Italian team is most likely to get this. Yeah. And I would support them in that.
Yeah. So anytime that you're like, the other thing that was weird that I forgot about is if you get chalk from your coach can't hand you chalk. It's why you see people like bring their own little chalk tray up, or their bag of, they cannot hand it to you, which is very interesting. Do you remember
I wonder why that became a rule? Like, what were they also handing?
Oh, exactly.
Were there like notes written in the inside of the chalk bag?
Repeat your dismount. You didn't go.
So just like nestle some steroids into the chalk. No one will see them. It's fine.
Do you remember who takes this deduction? Where it shows up on because you can obviously see if there was a neutral deduction taken on the.
Yeah. So a neutral deduction, it would be listed separately.
Right. But these aren't neutral deductions.
Oh, then this would be
the
D judge is in charge of that. The execution judge is, it's like, just watch that toe point and shut up about it.
That's
the D judge, like D1, the D1 judge is like, I'm also in charge of everything.
Yeah. The D1 judge is like, your behavior is unconstitutional. That's it. Get out of here with that. Undisciplined, abusive behavior. Oh my God. Also, like, did they have to institute all of these rules because of Bella Caroli? That's basically...
If they were instituting rules for Bella Caroli, the code of points would be 20 more pages.
All the times he should have gotten these deductions.
Club Gym Nerd, you get discounts and first dibs on live show tickets, an extra whole podcast every week, athlete dossiers for major competitions, code guides, options to commission your own segments. It also makes a great gift. Check it out at gymcastic.com at the Join the Club tab.
Are men allowed to do floor to music?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go for it.
That's no rules against it. Men can absolutely do it. As Kensley has reminded us for 1,000 years. But there's so many opportunities here. Okay. Can you remount the podium after your routine is over? So you forgot your grips or something. You just run up there.
No. No remounting that podium.
Do you remember who did this at the last Olympics on high bar?
Oh, this was the Xiao Ruoteng incident? The salute incident?
The salute incident.
This is very good reference to how topical this is and how relevant it is, because Xiao Ruoteng of China, the men's all-around final, finishes high bar, great routine. He's thrilled about it. Celebrates once. Turns to the side, celebrates again, leaves, gets a 3/10 neutral deduction on his routine, then also goes back onto the podium because someone was like, you didn't salute, and then salutes. And so I still am not sure whether the 3/10 was for not saluting or it was for remounting the podium after your routine, because he could have gotten 6/10. I'm just going to say.
I know. And that's the thing. Like, so who do you think? So considering what a big deal that was, and considering that China and Japan back and forth for men's team gold, as usual. Who do you think is most likely to remount the podium?
Oh.
Because they forgot something, or
well, this
for mind games?
The person I am absolutely the most worried about this for is Jordan Childs. Because here's what's going to happen. Jordan Childs finishes her floor routine in the team final, and it's great. And next up is Simone Biles. And she's like, wait. This hoity-toity rich Olympic crowd that was able to afford Olympic tickets to the women's team final is sitting there, like, drinking their cocktails and not being sufficiently hyped because Simone is about to go on floor. So Jordan's like, I know what I'll do. I'll get back onto the podium like I do in NCAA, and I'll hype this crowd, and I'll do a little dance. And then the judges would be like, remounting the podium after your routine is finished 3/10 off the team score, you lose the gold medal.
Yep.
Like, now, I wasn't thinking about that before, but now that you've brought it up, I'm like, oh, that's 100% going to happen.
Yep. That's the thing. And like, she did this at trials. And remember last year at Classic where like it was hilarious. Zoe Miller and Simone had a little contest about had a bet about would Zoe twerk, on the podium. And then even though USA Gymnastics sent out an email that said, we really enjoy your enthusiasm and we're so glad you guys are. Also, Simone, like after her vault, walked down the podium and then did a little Legoland jump full turn. Instead of the Lego video games, also Mario, put your fist in the air, jump full turn, happy dance. They had to send out the email that reminded everyone that's actually a deduction. So we enjoy you. We love you. Please don't do it again. You're going to lose us the gold.
That we are taking away the athlete's voice or undermining your personality because we really don't want to do that. But also, am I a deduction? So.
Who that will be at this Olympic Games, because I forgot to ask you this, is most likely to use floor music for the men?
Oh, I mean, the real answer is none of them, obviously.
But who is just like, I'm here?
Yeah. See, this is why I just want like someone really just under the radar. Like Daike is just like, oh, you know what I do now? Florida music. I'm just going to do this now. Did you think it was going to be like the Italian team? No, it's me. No.
I would have said the British team.
I've been working with Kenzo, and we've put together for years, and we've put together a full women's floor routine, and I'm going to do it right now at the Olympics. That would be a dream.
Hashimoto Daike, that would be amazing. He could change everything. Also, if you don't have like someone ready to play it, just have like, do you think they'll have a DJ at? Do you think since Watanabe, the F.I.G president, was at trials, sitting next to Lili and right next to the DJ, that we will?
But like, how much does he have of this IOC event?
Oh, that's true. But I mean, they have DJs and all the other stuff. Speaking of which, I did reach out for an official comment on this topic.
On the topic of DJs, yeah.
I have not received a response. So
because they were like, we have actual questions. We have actual work to do. And not just as DJ questions. That is for later when like maybe an off day.
I did not reach out to the FIG or the IOC about that. You guys, please.
Well, you wouldn't get a response from them even if you reached out about something real.
Real, yes. So. Like they would never. Anyway. Okay, so okay, this is very important. When I'm doing a floor routine, either men or women, either one, can I mark my spots on the floor? Like if there's spots that I have to like look up at the crowd and like hit my spot, or I know I don't want to go out of bounds, so I can I draw on the floor, or just do like a happy face just to let Paris know to appreciate me?
You cannot draw on the floor. That would create, as we know, gymnastics is anti-chalk, despite the fact that you have to use chalk, and so any presence of visible chalk is hideous and undisciplined and inelegant and immodest behavior on the apparatuses. But just put it all over your body. That's fine. Cake those legs in chalk and draw your pictures there.
The way to do it is, okay, who's the most likely to break this rule? And I have a way that they can break it.
Oh, the most likely to break this rule is Sana Wavers, because she will be calculating her own D-score and need to do the math in chalk on the mat. She'll be like, no, that D-score was wrong. I'm Sana, I know. And I will be calculating my own D-score right now.
the way that you get around this on floor, if you want to mark your line in the corner, is you salute, then you jump with duck feet into the corner to make a wait. Are these any feet duck feet or outie feet or duck feet? What animal has any feet? Turn your toes in, jump into the corner exactly where you want your chalk mark to be with chalk all over your feet, and then just walk into your pose. That's how you're not drawing a line. There was just chalk on your feet.
And you're not doing an element before you hit your opening pose, unless in case that was part of this little quiz later and I didn't know about it and I'm preempting it, and if so, I apologize. But you're not allowed to like spin do a full turn into your opening pose, because that is an element before your routine begins.
You could do something that is not an element. What is the not an element thing that people should do when they mount the floor? Mount the floor. When they walk onto the floor, for crying out loud.
Well, you are getting up onto the podium, so it's a little closer.
But you can well, you can't flip onto the podium either. So
no.
Or turn or anything.
No, you just have to do sparkle fingers and such.
You could, a forward roll on floor is not in the code.
But that's an element though.
But is it in the code? Is it an element if it's not in the code?
This is a serious question. You need this. I give you permission to reach out on.
Spencer said, "Dear F.I.G."
Spencer said Jessica's allowed to send you this email, and they're like, "Who is Jessica?"
I can't wait for the judges to send in their emails about this. Okay. Could I, if you've listened to any of Jordan Child's interviews, it's like all the most important cultural pop icon quotes from Drag Race that you've ever heard. And I love they had a drag queen carrying the torch in Paris, by the way. Speaking of which, do you know? So the torch is the Paris torch is sort of like, it's like it's shaped, how do I describe this? It is little on the top, then it tapers wider in the middle, and then little on the bottom. Okay. That's the shape, metal torch. And they have planted all around Paris mini-sized torches that have like a prize, you get a little mini torch. Like there's only so many of these. It's very cool. But also there's some sort of like treasure hunt for this. But they look like little blunts. That's what they look like. The mini size one looks like you have a special tiny Olympic vape pen. That's what they look like.
Well, it's France,
It is. If you're not going to smoke the cigarettes, God, I'm wondering how much smoking there's going to be. Now I heard it's much, much better. So anywho, back to Jordan Childs and the quote machine.
Yeah.
So if I am a huge fan of name famous drag queen.
Okay.
And you
That's
wear
my name of my favorite drag queen. Drag queen name. Okay.
And you do your makeup like that. And you compete. Can you do that?
This, I would say, is a fascinating gray area that I'm very interested to see what would the Women's Technical Committee do, because they have made a rule against theatrical makeup, the Selena Van Herner rule, because she did Cat's makeup, and then it was like a cat, and they were like, "That's fun, so it must be destroyed." But the rule just says like overly theatrical makeup. And we talk about this all the time in college gymnastics, because I'm like, half of these gymnasts would get a deduction for this makeup, probably.
Just
right?
for the eyelashes alone.
No, because it's not playing a character, like an animal character. So I think you're fine. And I think someone should do it.
I agree. They might say, is it modest? For drag queens, you could pick a modest one of the spectrum of drag queens. So...
But the language about modest carries with it no penalty. Does not point to any deduction. It's just like, you must be modest. So what are you going to do if I'm not modest?
That's true. Oh, so who is most likely to do this? Who should do it?
Okay. So I feel like I want the entire Australian team to do it. Because they've been through a lot. they've made it back to the Olympics as a team after 2 Olympics without qualifying as a team. But then also leader talisman Georgia Godwin got injured this spring and is not able to compete at the Olympics. And I just want it to be a giant Australia party for them, because like the scoring expectation is a lot lower and they don't have their strongest gymnast, but they also have exciting things like Emma Nedov coming back and making the team. And I just want them to be like, despite the Australian Gymnastics Federation and everything you have done over the last decade to undermine our ability to make it back as a team, we did so anyway, and now we're just gonna like show some things.
I love this. So okay, so they can't do like anything.
No, but just like the most within the realm of not portraying an animal, just do everything.
Yes. Especially
what makeup should I wear? Yes.
Like where they do that thing where they draw like a line on the middle of their eyelid way out to the side, like Egyptian, like goddess style.
That's at minimum.
Minimum. Yes. Next important question you can yell at the TV about: if you see someone do this, this is the time to do it. All right. I just warmed up on vault.
Okay.
The springboard's moved for the next.
Went bad. Yeah.
Went terrible. The board is so hard. And, you know, I'm almost 5'7". So I have obviously like more mass than, you know, someone who's like, you know, 4'10". So I obviously need a different kind of arrangement of the springs on the board, or less board or more springs, that kind of thing. So can I just like quick switch the springs out just for my vault and then put them back in?
You cannot. Back in the day, you used to be able to, and then people started stealing the springs and they would go missing, and now you can't touch them anymore.
And we solved this problem by just saying, just if you make it to a Worlds or Olympics, just gift everyone springs. Like that should be your here, Federation. Here are your own springs.
Your like party favor bag includes springs.
You know, they already get all this stuff. Just give them springs. That would solve the stealing problem, we think. Can you wear a gold chain and hoop earrings while you compete?
Your earrings have to be studs, correct?
For who?
For women. The men don't wear earrings, so that's never been an issue. As we know, men don't wear jewelry because that's the rules of men. So there's no rule about that for men. But
so for instance, you could compete. Daiki Hashimoto Daiki could compete with hoop earrings and like a big gold chain.
I mean, I'm sure that would be a Selena Van Herdner situation where immediately you are immediately disqualified. But yeah.
What if you
the rules against being interesting for men's gymnastics are often unwritten, but they will tell you that we don't like this. They will be like, "Dear Heath Thorpe, we don't like this, how you're like elegant and have fun in your gymnastics and do nice things, and we don't like it. So it's ruined and you must desist." But it's not official.
The question is, will they wait till the end of the meet to make the rules for the next day, or could you get away
up there and be like, "We can't accept this"?
Could you get away with doing all your events with it? That's the real question. Okay.
Who on the women's side would be most likely to show up with gold chain and hoop earrings and just be like, "I don't care"?
Ellie Black.
Oh, okay. Famous rule breaker, Ellie Black. I love it.
The thing about Ellie,
she did that.
Ellie Black, the Canadian of Canadians, the consummate, always dependable, Ellie Black. I feel like, you know, remember when she did that, like that show they had in London, and you had to do like a funny, and she did the whole, she recreated the whole vault from Stick It.
With the strap,
the strap and the running and the just jumping on it on the vault. Yeah, I mean, I can see a scenario.
The perfect ambassador of gymnastics, as we know. Ellie
she
Black.
Is. Yeah.
I feel like the most likely to do this would be Sabrina Voinea, because her mom would be like, "You know what's classy? You need to wear a gold chain and hoop earrings," and she'd be like, "In."
Oh my
And then
God.
they'd be like, you get a neutral deduction. And she'd be like, I'm still in.
Speaking of Sabrina Bonea, who I think could make a floor final here. Very good for Mania. I would like to see her take advantage of the rules they don't have about hair, which is right. Like, and her mom would be perfect to do this. Like, let's make you more theatrical, not with makeup on floor, but let me introduce you to backcombing and hairspray. And let me just give you like the full 80s. I'm going to a
if
medal.
they didn't make that a deduction in the 80s, then how would you make it a deduction now?
Right.
Really?
And like teams take advantage of the college. So basically, we're just giving you instructions on how to stand out, everybody. This is how to do it. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, say I'm from a federation where we have no funding, we have no sponsors. I had to personally fund myself to the Olympic Games. And I happen to have beautiful feet. And so with perfect toe point, this is true. It's just a fact. And so like I'm just gonna write my OnlyFans on the bottom of my feet because that's how I'm gonna pay my bills. How else am I gonna get there? Can I do that?
So the IOC has very strict rules about what you're allowed to advertise. Correct? So I'm going to say
what
no.
if I tattoo it on the bottom of my foot?
Oh, what can they do?
What can they do?
What can they do?
There's no
except
tattoo
obviously
rules.
tell you to put socks on.
There are no tattoo rules. And people write stuff on themselves all the time. We have a picture of Kalia Lincoln at trials, and she wrote "me versus myself," I think is what and Fact Checker got a beautiful picture of it. It's one of the black and whites. I love it. Like, how would they know if you just write a note to yourself, but it happens to be your OnlyFans? Yeah. How would anybody know? So anyway, you guys, self-funding. I mean, it doesn't have to be OnlyFans, obviously. Whatever.
But your mind went right there.
I mean, it's not like Olympians haven't gone on to do this. You know, you got to pay the rent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We just saw something like this happen at Olympic trials, and I was surprised there was not a deduction, even though I think it's a dumb deduction. What color can your tape and wraps be? Bandages.
I mean, as all rules are written, they start with what is encouraged to be white. As all organizations write their rules start to begin with. So like beige is always fine. And then like if you can get your actual skin color, then fine. But otherwise be white.
Yeah.
You're welcome, science gymnastics.
That is the rule. So starting with racism and going to, you can't have white tape. And we just saw this at trials, and there was an athlete that didn't. I was like, oh, I wonder if he's doing this to like make a point, like take the deductions you want in order to win this shit and make the team and be all around. Or I wonder if it was like he had to get his ankles taped so fast that they didn't have time to wrap, but it actually looked really cool. And I was talking about how this was a thing that, so you do a normal like athletic tape, the white tape that, you know, everybody knows is athletic tape. And then you do like a stretchy bandage that goes around it, that it comes in tons of different colors. Now it didn't for years. And the rules say if it's available by the manufacturer or a manufacturer, that's what you have to use. And I was like, well, maybe it just happened at the very last second. He needed to get taped. They didn't have time. But it looks cool, and people do this in other sports just to like have the look kind of a thing. So anyway, I did like that there seemed to be no deduction for that, although it wouldn't have mattered anyway if there was a deduction. Who's most likely to take advantage of the whatever color tape?
Well, I feel like in terms of leotard fashion, the French team is kind of taking the lead. So, you know, why stop at the leotard?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I mean, could you do tape that's not skin color, but it makes your Leo look even more blingy?
I mean,
so,
we're going to get there.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, tape that has Swarovski crystals on it is the next step.
Speaking of which, we talked all about this on Behind the Scenes on Friday. That's our show where we do a Q&A. It's live on Fridays, and we talk about all the things and the latest news. And you guys can ask the questions or send in questions ahead of time. And we went all about the Leos we talked about. But yeah, the Leos are out. And Emily Giambalva, Washington Post, did an amazing multimedia that I found really interesting and read and watched the whole thing. Article about how the Leos are made and how all the crystals are put on. And then they do the crystals by machine and then they do them again by hand. My God, you guys. But you'll be happy to know she did report the entire national team was measured before these were made. So they should all be perfectly made. And we won't have a 2016, 2012 Olympic situation. Or was 2016 better? I think 2012 was the worst. Also, speaking of behind the scenes, we have a couple things coming up that I wanted to let you guys know about. We have our live show, virtual live show from Paris, from the Olympics. Is coming up August 2nd on Trampoline Day. Tickets will be on sale this week. And we have new merch in the store, some new designs at gymcastic.com, the store tab. We have hats, and we have a new Simone design. The power ranking is up. So you can check out the power ranking before you choose your fantasy team, because there will be fantasy for the Olympic Games. This Friday is Behind the Scenes at noon Pacific. We have a special guest coming to chat with a little bit. We'll have a little bit of behind the scenes that we normally do, like Q&A. And then you guys will be able to see us record this week's episode live. So you will be able to see how the sausage is made, as they say, the innards of the chalk bucket. You'll be able to see how it goes. So this is one opportunity to do that we don't usually have, because there's no time to record the preview podcast as close to podium training starting as we would like, because I'm traveling over the weekend. So you will be able to see it. So if you want to see how it goes and what we do, and possibly things where we're like, oh, let's change that, now's your chance. Behind the scenes for our Club Gym Nerd members who support the show all year long, and we appreciate them so much. Next up, let's talk to Dr. Hugues Mercier, who redesigned the JEP program, which is the Judges Evaluation Program. So this is how judges are evaluated over the long term to pick the most accurate judges for the Olympic Games and World Championships. And he's going to talk about how they developed that, how it started, how the system works, and let you know how have they created a system that is guaranteeing the most accurate judges. Here's Hughes Mercier.
My background is really at the intersection of mathematics, CS, and statistics. My PhD is in engineering, but my master's is in CS. My undergrad is in math. A little bit of jack of all trades, masters of none. I was working on completely different problems at the time, like codes for distributed storage systems. And my boss, who was a professor, my university, told me, hey, I have this former student, he's working for Swiss Timing. You have a very specific problem. And yeah, you should come. I think you're going to like it. And I don't think I'll understand very much. And so I went with him, and I went to the F.I.G office, and I met the F.I.G brass at the time. That was, around 10 years ago, people from Swiss Timing. And Swiss Timing was supposed to do some judge evaluations for the F.I.G. And I also met Les Fairbrother and Lynn Fairbrother. Lynn was very involved in British gymnastics. And Mr. Fairbrother had developed this judging system. It was really ad hoc. He was working from home. He was getting older, and no one was understanding what he was doing. And so I started talking to them, and as soon as he started describing what he was doing, I understood everything. And people were so happy. I said, oh, you understand what he's doing? Yeah, of course I understand. I'm so happy. And the work started like that, maybe 10 years ago. So the beginning was really research-based. I was based in a university, in 2 universities. A lot of work was done with students. What's the literature? How should we do things? And very quickly, it became clear to me that what Mr. Fairbrother was doing was kind of okay, but it had many weaknesses. And what they told me, oh, can you explain us precisely what he's doing so that we can put it in our system? I told them, no, that does not interest me, because if you want to do something like that in a system, you might as well research what should be done, and that's what interests me the most. So the first 5 it was really theoretical. I have maybe, I don't know, between 5 and 10 master students, PhD students that worked on this with me. Figuring out how to do things, how to not do things, learning about the sport. So that was really the genesis.
When you talk about, I think one of the most important things for fans, and we do have a lot of engineers and PhDs and three Harvard graduate lawyers who also listen to the show. We're going to start an alumni group for them. People want to know specifically, like, how does the data show that it works? How did you prove it?
Before showing that it works, let's start on how we do things. And I would say that judging has 2 components. The first component is accuracy or precision. So if I'm supposed to give an A2, do I give an A2 or something close to an A2? And if I have to review 5 routines that are similar, am I always on target? So this accuracy, precision. And the other axis is really biases or fairness, what we call fairness. Do I have biases, either positive or negative, in favor or against gymnasts for any reason? It can be phenotypes, body type, height, skin color, hair color. I'm Canadian, maybe I like red outfits, for instance, nationality. So these 2 axes are really the main parts. And what we realized is that most of the research was done on fairness, because fairness is much easier to do across all sport. There's tons of literature on whether or not judges in any sports are biased or not, how to quantify this. But there was essentially nothing on accuracy. Are judges accurate? And it turns out that this is much more difficult, but it's also much more important, because I would say that in gymnastics, the main issue is not fairness, is really precision and accuracy. So most of our focus is on that. So the way it works is, so after the last retraining we did was after the Tokyo Olympics. So I talked to the FIG, and in each of the FIG disciplines, we took competition over the last cycles. Let's take artistic gymnastics. We took 10 or 11 competitions, 3 world championships, junior world championships, some continental events, some big World Cups. We take all the data, and we just study the behavior of the overall judging population on each discipline, on each apparatus. And this is what we call the intrinsic judging error variability. So it's a bit technical, but we essentially try to capture how judges behave on each apparatus for each performance quality. And it's not very complicated, but also we wanted to be fair on judges. And it's clear that what we realized very quickly, 7-8 years ago, is that, of course, the apparatus and the disciplines are wildly different. If you take artistic gymnastics, for instance, it turns out that, and we were surprised at the beginning, vault is by far the easiest apparatus to judge. And
that's always so surprising to me, because I think it's so quick, it would be the hardest to judge. But and from the E-scores, I always think, well, they missed a million things because the E-scores are way too high. But so tell me more about that.
It's true. It's true. But the thing is, judges, it's so fast that judges essentially, they take a picture, they don't move their head, and they take a snapshot, and then they can record the deduction, they can recall them, and it's very precise. So just to give you an example, in my data set, it's mostly category 1 and 2 judges, the best judges on the planet, essentially. The average judging error for a vault at let's say the 9 execution level is about 0.1. So this is the average error made by an average judge on a 9.0 execution vault. It's very, very precise, very, very precise. And if I go to the other extreme, pommel horse is by far the most difficult to judge. The routine is much longer, and the body parts, you have to watch the arms, the legs, you have to watch the apparatus, dismounts. There's so many body parts in movement. It's very, very hard to judge pommel horse. So just to give you an example, let's say on a 7 execution on the pommel horse, the average judging error is like 0.3, 0.4. So the average judge, when judging a pommel horse at, let's say, a 7 execution level, makes an error of about 0.3, 0.4. So we want to be fair to judges, because we don't want to say, you know what, all the vault judges are outstanding and all the pommel horse judges suck. Mm-hmm. That's not what we want to say. That would be unfair. So we want to compare judges to other judges who, we know it's hard to judge pommel horse. So if I give a 7.4 instead of a 7, this is kind of average. It's completely normal. But if in vault I give a 9.4 instead of a 9, this is outrageous. It's a big, big, big gap, because I expect judges to be very, very accurate. And it also depends on performance quality. Most of these sports, it's not only gymnastics, all sports with similar panels have the same behavior. Mm-hmm. If you work on deductions, if a performance is flawless, outstanding execution, there's nothing to deduct. Essentially, it's very easy to judge. I mean, yeah, you have to find the 1 or 2 deduction, obviously, but there's much less margin for error. If you judge a routine that's mediocre, then yeah, there are many issues in the code of point. Oh, the grip was wrong. Okay, but then the leg, the angle, and you try to record it, and then boom, you move to the next element and the next element. And we also wanted to be fair to judges, because we didn't want to say, oh, in final of the Tokyo Olympics, all the judges are outstandingly precise, and in some junior championship where athletes are not as good, all the judges are terrible. No, this is all taken into account, right? So mm-hmm. If I'm judging an outstanding performance in terms of execution or artistry, I'm compared to other judges that judge it under similar circumstances based on our training data. So this is really the main idea for how we start to build our model. It's really based on past experiences and past behavior of judges. We see wide differences.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that, because I remember you telling me something about how you don't just compare the judges in any circumstance. It's how, if you're judging in qualifications, you compare to qualifications. If you're judging in finals, you're compared to judging in finals. You are comparing circumstance to circumstance. Is that right?
Exactly. And the circumstances are the discipline, the apparatus, and the quality of the routine. Those are the axes we consider to be fair. So, and most of our methods are probabilistic, and we just count everything. Okay, okay, so yeah, first athlete in a final, I'm supposed to give a 9.1. I give a 9.1. This is good. It's much better than accurate than the average. Next athlete, I was supposed to do to give 7.6. I give 7.9. Maybe not so good. And we just add everything up, and we do some rather simple calculations, and we end up with what we call an accuracy score, and we take everything into account, and it's probabilistic. So the more data we have, we have what we call confidence intervals. So meaning that it's probabilistic. I always give the example, if you look at Steph Curry on the free throw line, if you love basketball, if he goes 2 out of 4 on the free throw line for a game, might say, oh, that's not very good. But again, the confidence comes from the amount of data that we have. So if we track judges over years, we have hundreds of data points for each judge. And at some point, the cream rises to the top. And the best judges they make fewer errors and they make smaller errors all the time. And of course, it's not perfect, but it works because it's very sticky. So we take, let's say, half of our data and we compute who the good judges are, and we take the other half of the data. The good judges, they're always the same. It's very, very sticky. And of course, sometimes they have good days, sometimes they have bad days, but it's clear to me, the main lesson of our work is that judging is really a skill. It's really a skill. It's like being an athlete, right? Some athletes are just better than others, and some judges are intrinsically significantly better than others. Even in category 1 and category 2, we see huge differences across the spectrum of very good judges.
What are the other kind of misconceptions about judging? I mean, the first thing that struck me was, fans want the judges to be absolutely perfect all the time. And that's just not true. There is a little bit of error calculated into it for each event. So what are the other misconceptions?
Yeah. So, the misconception, I think the first misconception is about, how athletes are ranked and whether they're ranked in the right order. And fans tend to forget that we really have a holistic view, right? As a fan, we saw the routine as a whole, said, oh, that was nicer than that one. So it's very holistic. And judges, and they should not do that. That's where the 10 system was changed to the open system, is that no. We have codes of point. We judge per component, and we just judge each component based on objective guidelines in codes of points.
This is fascinating to hear you say this, because I know we're going to talk more about college gymnastics and the NCAA in the United States, because judging is constantly an issue. And this year it's been even big. I mean, it's always been an issue for 30 years, but it's getting to even a bigger issue now. And the argument that's always used for college judging and the fact that there's sort of unwritten rules and they don't exactly follow the code of points is, well, if the ranking is right in the end, then the individual scores don't matter. And to me, that seems insane to argue that way. So it's so validating to hear you talk about this in this way.
Yeah, it's very interesting because the old system in figure skating was based on ranks as well. And we did a lot of work on this. I had a student who did his master thesis in mathematics on this topic. How should we rank athletes? And it was very interesting because one of the first questions I asked the F.I.G 10 years ago is that, okay, suppose that I have a really weird job, he's really outstanding, he has the qualification, 150 athletes, in the right order from 1 to 150 in terms of execution, 100% correct, but he's very harsh and everybody is 1.5 points too low. Is that judge a good judge? And the answer was a resounding no right away. No, he's a very bad judge because he's not applying the code of points the way they should be applied. The problem with rankings is that it's not a pageant, right? So it's not a pageant. So when you have rankings, you try to rank, and also you have this idea that personal style comes into play, reputation comes into play. I expect something, and it becomes very subjective, very, very subjective right away. So it's really not the way to go because what we want is to remove subjectivity out of it, and the guideline must be precise and they must to be applicable. And that's really, really the way to go. It's really interesting because before the F.I.G, the Mr. Fairbrother system had what he called a ranking scores, right, where the athletes ranked in the right order by judges. And we spend a lot of time on this. It's very interesting because this difference between rankings, mathematically, the problem has been studied since the 13th century. It's a very old problem. And so I'll give you an example, right? If I'm swapping first and second place, that's bad. And if I'm swapping 15th from 16th, maybe it's not as bad. So we can quantify that, but how much worse is it, right? Or if I swap 1 and 2 versus 2 and 6, which one is the worst? How do we quantify this? Also, if I swap 1 and 2, and the first one has, let's say, a 2 points ahead of the second one, it's very bad. But if I swap 1 and 2 and the performances are very, very close, let's say within 0.1 of each other, then it's not bad. And we can quantify all that. And I was never satisfied with anything. It made me very, very uncomfortable, because when I was too strict, I was afraid of penalizing judges who just made an error at the wrong place. It's like, oh, Olympic final, I blick in the wrong place, I end up red. I thought that was unfair. And if we had something that was a bit more generous, it didn't make any difference from between what we do with accuracy. We just got rid of it completely. Just completely got rid of it. I told it, no, we apply the codes of points the way they should be applied, and that's the way to go. And of course, in general, if you apply the codes of point correctly, you end up with the right rankings, essentially. But the codes of point, they must be clear, they must be simple, they must be applicable, and this is the way to go.
I wanted to ask you something specific about misconceptions about evaluating judges, because I know that I've been to some world championships where I've literally seen the judges keep standing up and putting their arms up and being like, I cannot see from here. Why are we sitting in this position? So like some judges can see really well from their spot and some cannot. And this is not normal. This is not an average thing. Normally the F.I.G spots for judges are great, but this does happen. So does the judging position matter?
When we did the analysis, the answer was a resounding no. No. And I think that it's kind of a cop-out for judges, because the good judges are good no matter where they are seated. Now, of course, some angles might be different but yeah, I don't buy that. I don't buy that in general. In some specific instances with, let's say, bad lighting, but in general, it's a resounding no. It might exist, but not enough to transform a good judge into an average judge and vice versa. So that's the first misconception. Another misconception, I think, again, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but it's what we call this the position, the serial position bias. Essentially, judges say, you know what, at the beginning of a competition, I might try to look how the other judges behave. And if I hit too high, I'm going to adjust as the panel goes along, because I don't want to stand out, right? I just want to be average. That way, everything is going to be fine. And we did not test that in gymnastic. Our data was not rich enough. We didn't have, let's say, starting order all the time. But I had a very good students, and we did that for the Pyeongchang Olympics in figure skating. And I was not surprised, but so these judges, they were telling me what. So I was telling them, okay, then we would expect that judges would, as a panel goes along, they would agree more and more and more. So their variance, if we, remove quality of performances and so on, that the variance would decrease, right? At the beginning, there's huge gap between judges. And as we move towards the last athletes, we know each other well on the panel. We kind of, okay, yeah, we understood each other, and then we're very close to each other. And the line was completely flat, completely flat. It did not go down. The variance was constant, completely flat. So there was no truth to that whatsoever. It's very, very interesting. And the lesson is that judging is so hard.
In the past, there were a lot of, in the past, we know for a fact that there were cocktail parties where people would talk about who should get what scores and when, and this was all negotiated, like this is documented. Yeah. And I think that it's very, very, very different now than 50 years ago. But I think that there is still, because of the way that the F.I.G evaluated judges, and I think mostly from the fans' point of view, they would see the judges penalized for unfair judging. They would give a reason for that, and the reason was often, national bias. And I think so that has stuck in people's mind as, this is this is a big thing. It happens. This is definitely happening. I think that a lot of coaches who are now, coaching, but they competed in those days, also have this stuck in their mind that there is a national bias very present. That's always a thing. So have you found that? Is that true?
Again, the main issue is really, really precision. There is national bias in every sport, and that's the thing that's not hearsay. That's not a misconception. It does exist. And in gymnastics, especially, well, all other sports like that, right? Because judges are attached to federations, and of course, most of them are former gymnasts, so they know the coaches, they know the athletes, they know everybody. All sports have this similar structure. So national bias is there, but you have to understand that there's a lot of ways to protect against it. For instance, if you have a panel of 7 judges, you remove lower 2, higher 2, right? It's much more difficult in that case. Also, there's a lot of effort. You will never have same nation judges in apparatus finals. All judges will be neutral. So it does exist, but it has a small effect. It has a very, very small effect. But yeah, it's true. It does exist in every sport, and we can see that. We can see that it tends to increase a little bit when the stakes are higher, like the last qualifications for the Olympics and so on and so forth. But in most cases, it's very hard to target specific judges. So we have information. This is not something that we've deployed widely, but I would say that in general, we can say, let's say as a specific competition, that there was a small amount of national bias in the aggregate over all the judges, which means that overall, you could say that judges were tilting just a little bit, either in favor of their athletes or against competitors, but nothing major. One thing I can say about that is we have to be very, very careful of how we handle this. There's a very interesting example in the NBA. And I think it's 2007, I think. 2 economists, Price and Wolfers, they did a very interesting study, and they showed that the NBA referees were racially biased. So essentially, yeah, black referees had the tendency to whistle more fouls against white players and vice versa. It was very, very controversial. And of course, most of the referees are white and most of the players are black. So black teams were at a disadvantage, and it could affect some games. And when the study was publicized, the NBA denied everything. They tried to attack the methodology, the results. The methodology was bulletproof. The results were bulletproof. 6-7 years later, maybe the researchers and a colleague, they redid the study, right? And the bias completely disappeared. It was gone. It was gone. And the most plausible explanation is that this was completely unconscious. Judges were not aware of it. The referees were not aware of it. And just by, shining a light or just putting an emphasis on it and showing them, say, hey, people are going to think that I'm a racist referee. That doesn't make sense. I have to be careful. Bias just disappeared, right? So I'm very cautious about that because, again, we cannot judge, we cannot infer intent, right? But I think that the direction I'm moving to, I hope, with the F.I.G is something like we expect our judges to be unbiased. And if a judge exhibits bias, whether it's conscious or not is completely irrelevant. We don't want that, right? Because it's possible that in some cases, there's something that's not fully conscious. But in the overall, it's something that might be totally unconscious. So we have to be very careful about that. But again, it happens, but it's not a major issue, in my opinion.
Are there any other, we talked about the misconceptions about the evaluation and the misconception about judging itself. Is there anything else that you think people should know about?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that we plan to do in the future that kind of in the pipeline, right? And one of them is getting access to better data. So for instance, in rhythmics, difficulty is very hard. And right now you have 2 judges on a panel that must agree on a difficulty score. We only receive the score post-agreement. So I told them it's very hard. I cannot do any difficulty analysis in rhythmics because I don't have that. So at least, and this will be changed in the next code of points that was approved recently, I think. It's like, at least the 2 judges, they will first record a score. it will be stored in the system, and then they will discuss, they might modify the scores, but we'll have the scores for further analysis. Swiss Timing, who's the main data provider at the international level, World Championship, Olympics, now they can supply initial scores and final scores. So for instance, if there's something big and the system blocks, and some judges have to change score because something happened, like keyboard errors or something like that, they can record initial and final scores. And I always tell the F.I.G, you have to force all providers to do something like that, because I want what happened pre-agreement. Post-agreement does not interest me anymore, unless it's an obvious keyboard error, right? I enter a deduction instead of a mark, then this we can remove. But I really want the analysis pre-agreement. In artistics, it's very, very rare. Again, as I said, the sport is mature, the codes of points are mature. It evolves, but not very, very fast. So you see, these kinds of things, getting access to better data, this is something that's in the pipeline. I would say that reviewing more performances in small World Cups, for instance, right? In small World Cups, the pounds are much smaller, typically 4 judges instead of 7, 8. Sometimes there's no one from the F.I.G that's there, no one from the technical committee. So 4 judges, it's much smaller. There's less scrutiny at these competitions. And my opinion has shifted. It's like, okay, if a TC has time to review performances, I would much rather that they review what happens in a World Cup in Baku or wherever, like than to review a qualifying phase at the World Championships. Because we have very good panels. The judges are good. There's a lot of monitoring. There's a lot of scrutiny, and everybody's there. And it's not really useful. So again, one of the weaknesses of the system is that if I'm a good judge in a small World Cup and I'm surrounded by 3 judges that do not know what they're doing, not because they're dishonest, because they're just less qualified, then it will also hurt my evaluation, because it increases the chance that I get it right, but the other 3 get it wrong, and it pushes my score, and so on and so forth. And without double checks from the TC, that might affect my performance as a good judge. So again, we're kind of shifting, like, if World Cups are used as judge qualification for the Olympics, then TC should review these World Cups as well, because the pounds are smaller. See, we're moving in that direction a little bit.
Thank you so much to Dr. Mercier for being on the show. That's part 1 of our interview with him, and part 2 will be next week during our Olympic preview. You can find out more about Dr. Mercier's work at Maelstrom Analytics and Technologies. I wanted to get to some Gymternet news, starting with the Australian situation. So the Australian Olympic coach withdrew from the games on the eve of their flight to France. So Jeb Silsbury stepped down, according to ABC News in Australia, after ABC News raised questions about previous allegations of inappropriate behavior and touching with the Australian Olympic Committee. So he then withdrew, and then the Australian Olympic Committee deselected him. And part of the reason they deselected him after we withdrew is because you have to sign something when you're going to the Olympics that says, I do not have any integrity matters pending. There's nothing against me. But ABC had reached out because he was terminated. They said this is their understanding, terminated from his last club coaching when complaints against him were substantiated. And they were things like saying disgusting things about women's bodies and touching someone's butt multiple times. So I think this is important to bring up now for multiple reasons. The one is that it is the amount of time investigations take are very important, and it is so unfair to an athlete to suddenly put an athlete in this position to not have a coach. Not to mention, maybe the athlete didn't know about any of this stuff in the first place, but can you imagine you're leaving for the Olympics and suddenly your coach can't go? You know?
Yeah.
And we know that there are multiple U.S. national team coaches who have allegations against them. Many who have been, and they've been pending for years. And here we are at, going into Olympic Games. And I just think that it is not fair to the athletes. It's not fair to the coaches. It's not especially fair to the victims to have these things go on so long. So, and I understand that, the Center for Safe Sport has some of these allegations and some of these investigations, and USAG can't do anything about it. It's all with the Center for Safe Sport. It's separate. Once it goes to them, they can't touch it. They can't tell people it can't go to meets, whatever. But I think this is one of the important things to talk about from multiple levels, from the victims, the alleged victims, from the gymnasts, and from the accused perspective. Justice needs to be swift. Secondly, in the Gymternet news, did you see that Max Whitlock showed off his own Lego figurine?
Okay, first of all, it's not a Lego figurine.
Well,
like it's a little porcelain statue.
Well,
I think you say figure. But
figure.
Nitpicking, I'll admit.
Are figurines only made out of ceramic? Is that why?
I feel like yeah, I mean I think that's the context of the word figurine. But anyway, I didn't see that, and that's excellent.
It was so amazing. They had some dinner kickoff thing, and he was very excited. It was his last national team camp ever. He's been going to those national team camps, he said, since he was 9 years old. He's 31 now. Yeah. So congratulations, Max Whitlock. If anyone deserves a little Lego figurine, it's you. Max Whitlock, obviously, Olympic and world champion on pommel horse, and is amazing hitting in difficult situations. And basically, I mean, the pommel horse is so boring until it's the finals, and then it's the most exciting event. Well, it's exciting for like disaster reasons, because there's usually more disaster on pommel horse than beam. But it is, the finals are just beauty and unbelievableness. So I'm excited for the Olympic pommel horse final. Other news, Ohio State men's gymnastics are in the news yet again. So this time the allegations come from Josh McGee, who's the brother of Paris McGee, who everyone remembers from when he was in Ohio State. He did like Lori's routine and Simone's routines, and everyone loved those with the tumbling. So Josh alleged that he was called the N-word by a teammate, that a black teammate said he was less annoying and less dark than him. He mentioned multiple problems with how he felt like he was treated on the team. But he did mention 10 people, including teammates and the assistant coaches, who made him feel welcome and accepted in the program. But this allegation follows what Paris McGee said that he endured as part of the program 10 years ago. Now his brother's on the team and is experiencing the same things. And then this follows the allegations by a college women's team who said that the men's team was at their meet, because they have women's and men's teams at Ohio State, and that the women's team, the men were in the audience during their meet, and the men were saying disgusting things directly to them while they were competing. Those are the allegations. In other news, Talladega, the second HBCU program ever, they're continuing the tradition of many colleges of cutting programs with national champions. Johnson, the reigning USAG college all-around champion, the first ever national champion from an HBCU, they've cut the program. They started and ran that team with only 11 months before the season started. That's crazy. You can help save the program. They've raised a lot so far. So if you want to contribute and try to save that program, reach out to them. We have some 4-year headlines to discuss, Spencer. My God, you guys, 4-year headlines are our favorite thing. So send them in if you find them, the most ridiculous thing you've seen. So this is where we issue yellow cards to drive-by gymnastics coverage, which there was a lot of during this time. So there was a Yahoo article that said, the biggest threat to the women's team at the Paris Olympics is Russia.
Good one.
Yeah.
Famously Russia. Ineligible Russia.
Yeah. Famously has no one here, Russia.
That's a really good one, because that's not just like, I don't follow gymnastics, but I had to write an article about this. Like, that's all the sports. Like, there's some individual Russian athletes, but it's like a whole thing.
Yeah. So Russia cannot compete. First, they couldn't because of their systematic doping thing, and then there was, and then now because of the war on Ukraine, they're ineligible. And the individual athletes could basically apply to be a individual, what was it called, independent athlete, and had to go through
neutral,
neutral athlete, and they had to go through security check. But none of the gymnasts that we know of applied to it
from Russia.
From Russia, Belarus,
some artistic gymnasts from Belarus, and a lot of trampoline athletes.
Yeah, and there's some that got through the security check, which is basically like, is there evidence you supported the war publicly? Okay, if there isn't, then we'll let you compete. Vogue did an article about the leotards, and the U.S. leotards, and spelled Simone's name wrong.
Good one.
Simone Biles going to the Olympics game. Remember Simon? Yeah.
Simon's so good. Yeah.
Simon is amazing at gymnastics. In the socials this week, Kensley, Neutral Deductions, men's coverage, check her out, tweeted about Simone, and it was picked up everywhere. And I love this because she disguised a Simone. This is the best way to get people interested in men's gymnastics, is disguise it like she did. Subterfuge. Kensley did it. The Chinese are bringing, this is her quote, the Chinese are bringing the most decorated men's gymnastics team for this Olympic Games with a combined 5 people, 37 world and Olympic medals. You know who also has 37 world and Olympic medals? Simone Biles.
Good one.
Kensley, everybody.
See, stats research is fun, Jessica. You come up with fun things like that, and they're fun.
Listen, 192 artistic athletes. That's what I got to. And a word count for you this week. You're welcome.
Thank you. Did you count the words by hand, or did you copy and paste it?
Obviously not. I copied and pasted and did word count on Google Docs because I'm not going to mess that up. There's a computer for that. Oh, count them by hand. What is this? The 1800s? We will see you guys on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific for our Let's Talk About the Simone documentary live behind the scenes. And you can join Club Gym Nerd. Just go to gymcastic.com for the details. And then we'll see you on Friday for a behind the scenes with a special guest. And we'll record our episode, our Olympic preview, so you can be in and see us record, and we'll answer some questions as well. And then I'm off to Paris, and our first live episode from Paris will be after women's podium training. And there will be a podcast every single day after that, except for the opening ceremonies day, because there's nothing that day. So it's coming up fast, you guys. We're almost here. 10 days away. So please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Please consider joining Club Gym Nerd for all the extra bonus stuff that we're going to have coming up. You can also set your podcast player to automatically download. If you're traveling this summer and you don't have Wi-Fi, make sure you already have your GymCastic episodes downloaded. So until Wednesday at 6 p.m. for behind the scenes, talking about the Simone documentary on Netflix, take them on gay, split on rights, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks for listening.